Okay, we're live. Here we are, folks. Who's ever online? I finally found it. Just before we start. We're going to be beginning on this book here, The Shadow of the Ladder. It's going to be on page 112. I sent out copies for those who have copies or don't have copies. And if you want a copy of these sheets, just email me at rebyak32@gmail.com. Rebyak, REBYAC 32@gmail.com, and we'll send you this. I also sent this, okay, out to people. I'll send it to the class also. I finally found this, being here in my house, and we had to go over notebooks and notebooks. I've been looking for this for, I'm telling you, almost nearly a decade. This sheet, I couldn't find it digitally. So I finally found it. These are the 13 attributes. And I was looking, and I was thinking to myself that, this is really, corona, it's called Keter. That's corona. What a corona is a Keter. Keter is the meat of Keter. And I mentioned last week that there was this plague that was actually 1400 years ago. The Rabbi gave a commentary about War of Gog and Magog, that it was going to be a plague, and it was going to come from Keter. And I looked up and I'm like, what's the meat of Keter? What's the quality of Keter? Of course, I went to the book called Gates of Light, written by Yosef Gikati about 1,000 years ago, who goes through every single one of the 10 sfirot, the 10 attributes. And in each of those 10 attributes, okay, it has, the ways that we need to behave. And of course, I opened it up. I went right to Keter going, what's the deal here? And it came so clearly, and it was just so amazing that the idea here was, Keter was, of course, the palm tree of Devorah. The 13 attributes of compassion, how God behaves with us, and how we have to behave with other people. In other words, every time that we feel there's some kind of separation between us and others, and the separation comes from our perception, our attitude, the way we look at it, actually we're feeling insulted. And then there was that separation, because right now it's a dynamic going on in the world, how we're separated from each other, right? We're separated, but we're kind of connected. We're going back to our, what I call it, the grassroots Jew, right? We're stripped of everything. This shul I don't go to, there's no more of that. There's no more, that's the shul I don't go to, right? There's no more of those kind, right? This is the shul. It doesn't happen anymore. It's gone. So the idea here is, it's more, I would call it grass-fed minion, right? So the idea here is we're being separated from. And the idea is, of course, we think that this corona, this energy of Keter is causing the separation, but I'm thinking maybe in that we need to create a vessel, how to receive this light. And in order to receive this light, we have to prepare ourselves to be that vessel, to be the conduit, to bring more of God in the world. And the way to do that is to emulate the 13 attributes of compassion that is brought down in the palm tree of Devorah, called Tomer Devorah, written by Rabbi Yosef Cordovero in the 16th century, who enumerates every single one of these 13 traits. I'm just going to do this just for a minute. And if you need the sheets, please feel free to email me and I'll send you the sheet that I finally found, because it was my own perush about going through these 13 qualities of compassion, and the idea underlying is, and I'm going to be probably giving the 5-minute little Devar Torahs over Facebook in the next week or so to go through these, because it's important that we have to utilize the situation we're in right now to step back, obviously, and how to master these 13 attitudes, perceptions, how to view each other, that when we're in the face of insult, if such a thing should occur, God forbid, that we would actually now take it as an opportunity now to express the quality of compassion in this world, and we are the ones who bring the quality of Keter in the world in a kosher way, in a way that we can take it, in a way that we can emulate God, and therefore bring a tikkun that we need to, of course, because then that will fuse the separation aspect that we're experiencing right now. We're really an unbelievable social network of people, and we're trying to experience, how come this is happening? So I believe that's one tikkun is to emulate the quality of keter, of crown. Okay, so, and that's done by that. I'm not going to go into it now, but you have that sheet, and then you could talk about it or email. Feel free to email me, but that's at a later time. In any case, let's get to what we're at to now in terms of the Palm Tree Devorah and the study of Kabbalah. This is from Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ashlag. These works that he did a series of introductions, and this is called the Introduction to the Study of the 10 Sfirot. And he's bringing an interesting idea of the concept of Torah. That the concept of Torah, actually, we have a famous rule, a phrase that we've been brought down, is called Barati Yetzer Torah, Barati Torah Tavlin. I've created the evil inclination, and I've created the Torah as its remedy. Okay? So the Torah has to be a remedy for the evil inclination. As we know, the famous passage in the Talmud, if you happen to get hit with the evil inclination, some kind of urge, or whatever it is, a negativity, negative habit, pounds on you, and you're attacked by it, the rule is, bring him to the study house, and then when you bring him that maneuver, that disgusting energy to the study house, you'll soften him, you'll weaken him. So the idea here is the Torah is the remedy for the evil inclination. So the idea here is Job, as we know, the book of Job, who went through all of these calamities. It's even doubtful even if he really existed. Okay, some say it was Moshe Rabbeinu who wrote the book. And the deepest secrets actually are in the book of Job. So, one second. So the deepest secrets are in the book of Job. But anyways, Job wanted to go ahead and pray, and he wanted to exempt all of the world from judgment. He says, God, you created righteous people. They were born on the mountaintops. They saw everything. And then you created wicked people who were born from the lowest piece of whale turd in the deepest crevice of the ocean. They're born to be that way. They were raised in that environment. They should be exempt from any kind of judgment whatsoever. But of course the answer, his friends who came to comfort him, answered him and says, no, it doesn't work that way. Okay, God created the evil inclination, but the Torah is its tavlin. The Torah is its spice. The Torah is the remedy, the softening, the way how we deal with our evil inclination, whatever that might be. So here we started with paragraph 18, that he says here, it is clear that the sinner can therefore not excuse himself or herself from the consequence of their sin. By the way, I just have to throw this in, that the Chavetz Chaim did say, and I think I've said it before, when things happen in the world, the Jews, the religious people, need to look at themselves and do introspection. What are we doing, or what can we do more? What are we not doing enough that this is happening in the world? Don't forget when King Solomon was in rule, right? There was no calamity that happened anywhere in the world. Not a drought, not an earthquake, not a hurricane, not a flood, nothing. Okay, and the Chavetz Chaim did say when something happens, even in a remote place, that you think, what does that have to do with us? No, it does have to do with us. We are in charge, whether you like it or not, in terms of our relationship with God. Then that what things that happen in the world, we have to look at ourselves. And unfortunately, they had it right. The Gentiles had it right. It's the fault of the Jews. Okay, but of course, their solution was wrong. Okay, the solution is they have to get the Jews, they have to try to facilitate the Jews to do what they're supposed to be doing here instead of eliminate them. Okay? So, in any case, a person who sins cannot excuse himself from the consequences of their sin. Consequences. Okay? That's a good word. A person may say he or she is studying Torah. Okay, I'm learning Torah. But still be troubled by sinful thoughts. It happens. And this means that they are troubled by doubts and their evil inclination. Sinful thoughts can go a very huge spectrum of what a sinful thought is. But let's look at it as a very, very subtle, just even a doubt. Even a small, subtle doubt that God is running the world. Maybe he's not running the world. Maybe there's God and nature. Okay? What really? We know there's no such thing. or any kind of doubt, any kind of situation of doubt, or any kind of evil inclination which represents or expressed by a bad habit. Okay? So let's say the guy's learning Torah and he's still got the same bad habits. Sound familiar? In such a case, the person must know that just as the Creator, blessed be He, created in him or her the evil inclination in all its force, God also created the medicine and the antidote, which can be relied upon to weaken the power of the evil inclination and eliminate it completely. He's going to get to explain it, but I created the Torah and I created the antidote. The Torah is the antidote. Okay? If someone is engaged in Torah and does not succeed in removing the evil urge from themselves, then one of the following alternatives must be the case. Either he or she was negligent as regards to the requirement of putting sufficient effort into the practice of Torah, not enough energy, not enough application, and we all have to look upon ourselves. Am I studying something every day? Even if you're a busy person and you're involved in something, am I putting something into terms of applying my mind to Torah every day? Because the mind, don't forget, the Torah is the antidote, and it starts with the thoughts. Everything starts with the thoughts, okay? So it's got to be like what we call, right? You have to be infusing yourself with the kosher thoughts, true thoughts. And then, that, of course, that will wash away, brainwash, so to speak, right? All of the negativity, all of the negative thoughts and attributes and attitudes and perceptions that we might have, okay? So either a person is not putting enough effort into the Torah, right? Because we do have a great passage in the Talmud that does say, if a person comes and says, right, I didn't work at all in Torah, but I got there, right? You don't believe that person. Al ta'amin, right? Do not believe someone who says, I didn't labor, but nonetheless, you have to put effort in, because if you don't put the effort into Torah, in other words, you can go and buy the prescription, you can go to the pharmacy and get the prescription, but if you don't take the pill, right? You got the red pill or the blue pill. If you don't take the red pill, you're not going to wake up, okay? It's not going to work if you don't take the medicine, right? So you got to make effort into it, okay? That's one possibility. Or it is possible that the person put in the appropriate quantity of effort, but was negligent regarding the quality. See, there's quantity. Believe me, in yeshivas, I've seen it. People are there. They're all day. They're yeshiva bachers. They're yeshiva students. They're there all day. Since they're there all day, okay, they can put in a lot of quantity, but where's the quality, and what does it mean by putting the quality of Torah into their learning? Okay, and this is here he gives a great explanation. Okay, that is to say, whilst involved in the practice of Torah, they did not focus their heart and mind on the need to attract to themselves the light that is in the Torah, which brings faith to the heart of man. In other words, there has to be this little focus, an element of focus, an element of kavanah, to pay attention when you're learning Torah, that this has to bring you to a higher level, a deeper level of faith, a deeper level of what we call Emunah, okay? And Emunah means connection to God, okay? Knowing God in a higher way, okay? So a person has to have that in mind, okay? So they practiced in an unmindful manner, removing their attention from the most important aspect required. The most important aspect required, which is that the light which is in the Torah should bring them to a connection, a higher level of faith, okay? It has to bring Emunah. The light in the Torah has a natural ability to bring the person to good. Okay? But some people can be learning their whole lives, and they're still the same shmendrik that they were, right? So right, like we talked about it before, you have a chamor nosei sfarim. He's a mule carrying books, right? You got a lot of book knowledge, but where is it in here? Okay? Where's your faith? Right? So that's quality. Even though they may have had this intention at the beginning of their learning, they became distracted from it during their learning. We'll talk about that. In either case, So we go on the next page. In either case, one may not exempt oneself from responsibility on the grounds that one's evil inclination compelled one. I got a big evil urge, Rabbi. As the sages said, I've created the evil inclination. I created the Torah as its medicine. There are no exceptions to this rule. If there were, then Job's argument would stand, God forbid. Okay, in other words, everybody is responsible to the degree. Now, everybody has a different degree. Everybody has different challenges because everybody has a different evil inclination based on a lot of variables. But the idea here is you got to be in a fight. And we've got the tool, and the tool is the Torah. And the Torah eventually, if you learn it in the right way, with the right things in mind, so then the light within the Torah will bring you to an elevated consciousness and an elevated state, and you will be an elevated being. Paragraph 19. Now, this is really great stuff that I'm going to share with you. This is great. Awesome. This is like amazing. You're finally going to be exposed to a great text by a student of the Ari. By what we have said above, I have removed a large allegation against the following words of Rav Chaim Vital, which appear in his introduction to Shar Hakdamot of the Ari, in which perplex many people. Okay, in other words, the Rav Chaim Vital was the main student of the Ari, the 16th century Kabbalist. The Ari never wrote anything. His student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, he was the one who wrote every single thing down from his Rebbe. Okay, so he wrote here, in this little passage here, it's a fantastic idea, and this is where everybody has their either excuses why not to learn Kabbalah or why they should learn Kabbalah. Okay, this is the source text. Okay, and it says like this. A man should not say, I will go and practice Kabbalah before I practice the Torah of the Mishnah and the Talmud. In other words, there's the inner parts of the Torah, what we call Pnimius, and then what's called Chitzonius. Chitzonius is Mishnah and the Talmud and the laws, the halacha. But a person should not go say, I'm going to learn Kabbalah. I'm sticking with Kabbalah. It's more spiritual, man. Right, dude? Right? So, before I'm going to, that Mishnah, the Talmud, right? A person cannot do that. For the rabbis have already said no one should study Kabbalah if they have not already filled their belly with Mishnah and Talmud. In other words, your belly has to be full of Mishnah and Talmud. And this would be like, why not? It gets me right directly to God. He says this would be like a soul without a body, lacking any contact with the physical world, right? In other words, don't be so spiritual where you're no earthly good, okay? Or you're so spiritual where you don't have any contact with anything in reality, okay? A person is not fully incarnate until he becomes involved at the physical level with the mitzvot of the Torah, the actions of the Torah. In other words, everything has to be translated, expressed in actual physical action. Okay? In other words, our souls were hand-picked by God. He took you on a stroll one time in this huge tower. And on the tower, every single step on this tower, there was a portrait on the wall. And he took you on a tour, and he was walking, and you were chilling with God, and you were hanging out with God, and it was so amazing. And then all of a sudden he stops at one level of the tower, and he looks at this portrait, and he says, "Hi, what do you think about this picture?" And you look at it, and you go, "It's okay, it's a nice picture." And he says, "This is going to be you. We're sending you down into the world, to the Olam Asiyah, the world of making." And you go, "I'm not going to leave here. I'm loving this here. What do we got? What's this? This is great. I'm loving it. I'm living it." Right? He says, no. The king explains to his subject, you need to go through this. You need to go through this world, right? To come out through your actions of Torah mitzvahs and your perseverance and struggles, right? And overcoming the struggles in order to finally become the unbelievable potential destiny that you need to be. And he convinces the person. He convinces the soul. So the soul comes down into that person. And they have to go through this world in order to get their garments. Almost like kind of like an angel getting its wings, kind of. So you have to go through this world in the action of mitzvot, And those mitzvot give you your clothes in the next world. Otherwise, if you go through this world and there's no actions of mitzvot, you end up in the big party with no clothes. And you don't want to do that, okay? The emperor has no clothes. There it's no fool, and there it's no joke, and there it's complete Rahmanas because there's no clothes to get you over there. So the idea here is a person cannot be just so spiritual and so into the Kabbalah only, and he doesn't study any of the chitzonias of the Torah, because what? You're like a soul without a body, and you need to have that. You need to have actions of mitzvahs. We're going to hold on. Right? A person is not fully, just to go over that line again, a person is not fully incarnated until it becomes involved at the physical level with the mitzvot of the Torah. But the opposite is also true. Look at this is what Rabbi Chaim Vital says. The opposite is also true. If one studies Mishnah and Talmud without also spending time in studying the innermost aspects of the Torah and its secrets, he is like a body sitting in darkness, lacking a human soul, which is the light of God that shines within. Right? The body becomes dry because it is not taking from the Torah the source of life. Okay? So you have two sides of the coin. Okay? You can't be a guy who only studies pshat. We're only pshat. Pshat is all you need is pshat. You just learn pshat. Which means like the external aspects of the Torah. Halavai, I got Talmud, I got Mishnah, right? And you don't delve at all into that. Oh, I'll get it after I mastered all of this, then I'll get to that. Is wrong. It's wrong. Okay, and now is the generation where actually we know that and we're experiencing that, where everything has to go into the pnimiyut, which is the inner aspects. Okay. Because we see that's like where what happens, it removes the dryness. Otherwise, you just learn halacha all day. Some people can do it. I'm not saying not. And some people do it, and I've seen it, okay? They somehow extract the internal parts through learning the pshat, okay? The way that it's looked at, my father-in-law once told me, he took a cup, right? My father-in-law, Zuchusu Yegin Aleinu, right? He says the pshat people who only study the Mishnah and the Talmud, they're trying to get to reality. Let's picture the reality, the unbelievable essence of their soul, and the total connection to all of the cosmos. They go through here. You go through the cup. So you're trying to get through in it, and you can dig, and you can dig, and you can dig, and it's great, and it's awesome, and some people can do it. A lot of people can't do it. So, but if you go into the study of Kabbalah, you go up and inside, and then you're inside the cup, okay? Okay. So now we have the two sides. So therefore, he continues, therefore, a student who wishes to practice Torah for its own sake, don't forget, everything that he's been discussing, all of these pages, is what's called Torah Lishma. Torah for its own sake versus Torah lo Lishma, not for the right motivations. What are the motivations? We always have to focus on what our motivations are when we approach Torah, okay? And some people are motivated, have external style motivations. I could be a smart tushy. I could be a rabbi, so I could be a rabbi, or whatever it is, right? So I could be an intellectual. I can argue with a rabbi, knock the rabbi down. There's a lot of whole various grades and degrees and levels of that external parts or external attitudes that a person have. And then there's Torah Lishma, okay? Torah for its sake, okay? So Lishma, it's a strange name, we'll get to it. Therefore, a person who wishes to practice Torah for its own sake needs to start by occupying himself with Bible, Chumash. You have to learn Chumash. Mishnah, you have to learn oral law. You have to learn Talmud. Women don't necessarily need to learn Talmud except for those parts which are appropriate for the halacha, the laws, like laws of Shabbos and all of those things, right? But a person has to start with the Chumash. You have to start with Bible, Mishnah. Absorbing from that as much as his intellect can gather. You're absorbing, you're learning, you're involved in it. Afterwards, he should turn to the practice of Kabbalah and come to know his Creator. That's the whole goal here. Know your Creator. through it, in the way that King David commanded his son, King Solomon, know the Lord your Father and serve him. Da et Elokei avicha va'avdehu. Right? Know the Lord your Father and serve him. You have to come to a knowledge, knowing God. Like what we always said, and I said last week, should be 3 minutes a day of hitbodedut. 3 minutes a day. God, I want to know you. God, I want to know you. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Thank you, God, for so much good. By the way, you should really start making a list of 100 things you could be grateful for. That's like the 100 blessings a day, right? Which stays the plague. And 3, of course, ask for what you want. 3 minutes. You can do it. But the whole idea here is, why do we apply ourselves to know, to learn Torah, is to know God. Now, I'll tell you a little story. It's a little on the side that it occurred to me while I was studying this. I was preparing this. I was in the 9th floor in Columbia Hospital when my son was in a coma after 2 months. It was Purim night. Strangest thing happened. Purim night, midnight Purim. Purim night. My son was in a coma. And some guys, Hasidim, walk into my floor. They're not usually, they obviously were coming to me. The guy pushes the phone number and says, here, there's this rabbi, you should talk to him. Right? And he says a few words, he hands me the phone, and I'm talking to him. And what this man said, and I says, listen, I got to take it from wherever it comes. The idea of wherever it is. And he said this line that I wrote it actually in the bottom of the notes that I hand out. Okay? Well, he said this, right? Because you have to understand, you have to ask yourself, am I knowing what God is doing right now? Think about that for a moment. Are you in a state of right? God right now. If you really did, you'd be so much at ease, and there would be no problems whatsoever. Okay? But let's say you don't know. There's a degree there. So you can say this line, and this is a great line. And this is what he taught me when he was on the phone at Columbia. I don't know what you're doing. God, I don't know what you're doing, but I know that you know what you're doing. Think about that for a minute. I don't know what you are doing in this world with right now, what's going on. God is making everything, whether you're saying, people are just too much gripped in the fear. He made this happen. He got into everybody's fear level and got everybody buying all the toilet paper in the world. Okay? I don't know what you're doing, but I know that you know what you're doing. God knows what he is doing. Do you trust that? Can you hang out with that? Okay? The idea here is to come, and every single thing that we approach, every single time, and all the energies is to know God. That means trust. That means faith. Okay, so in other words, if a person goes to Torah and he looks and he studies Torah and he studies the external aspects of the Torah, he has to go ahead and make sure he puts time in to study to get to really know God. But if the student, I'm continuing, but if the student finds that the study of Talmud is burdensome and hard for him, this is what Rav Chaim Vital writes, it is best that he leave it and turn to the practice and study of the true wisdom. It's called Chachmat HaEmes. Kabbalah has another name. It's called Chachmat HaEmes. It's a great name when you think about it. What is Chachmat HaEmes? With the wisdom of the truth. It's fantastic, isn't it? The wisdom of the truth. Emet is right, the first letter, middle letter, and last letter of the Aleph Beit, right? Aleph Mem Taf, right? Which means what is. The wisdom of what is. Okay? First, middle, and last, always. Cannot deny. Okay? That's what the Kabbalah is. The wisdom of what is. Right? This is what is meant by the passage in the Talmud. Look at this, and this is amazing. Whoa. If a student of Torah does not see a sign of blessing in his studies after 5 years, then he never will. That is the literal words of the Talmud, right? If a Talmud does not see a siman bracha after 5 years, shuv lo yireh, he will no longer see. That's the line. I saw that line. I knew that line. Actually, you know where that line is learned from? They learn it in the Chumash when it talks about, actually, I'm not sure which parsha it is, but it talks about the Levim, when the Levim are brought into doing the service in the temple. So the tribe of Levi, they work in the temple. So there's two different verses which mention two different time frames, two different ages. One age mentioned 30 they start work in the temple. And then there's another verse which says they start at 25. And then we're going, wait a minute, is it 25 or 30? So Rashi explains over there that they go in at 25 and learn for 5 years about what all the temple service and what it entails. And then after 5 years, then they actually start to become, they get in the roster, right? And then they actually do the actual service, right? And that's why Rashi quotes the Gemara in Chulin, that if a person doesn't see a siman blessing, a sign of a blessing, after 5 years, he won't see anymore. And I didn't know what to make of that, because here I was in yeshiva for it was 5 years. I got in when I was 19. I wanted to get married, start a family. And here it was, I was 24, or maybe even 25. I'm like going, look at that. I'm like going, what does that mean? I don't see a sign of a blessing. I'm not married. I'm not kids, right? Of course, the classic answer when you went to the rabbis would say, who says you're learning, right? Thank you very much. Okay? So, okay, I'm learning how to learn. Thank you very much. Okay? But what did it mean? So I looked at the commentators. He's going to bring an example, because it was almost like dead end. It's almost like, if you learn for 5 years and you don't see a sign of a blessing, finished. What? Well, finished? Well, what does that mean? What do I do? Just start, do I go and run on a beach, on Yom Kippur with the shiksa? What does that mean? Okay, give it up? Give it up totally? No, can't. What does it mean? So he explains here something, Gevalt. It's so amazing. Baruch Hashem. So he says here, okay, just to go back. So this is what it meant in the passage in the Talmud. If a student of Torah does not see a sign of blessing in his studies, after 5 years he never will. What does that mean? Right? However, everyone who does put their focus on the study of Kabbalah should... Okay, so anyways, we're going to talk about that in a minute. I'm still quoting him. Okay, I have to go back a little bit. If a student finds that the study of Talmud is burdensome and hard for him, it is best that he leave it and turn to the practice of true wisdom, which is the Kabbalah. And this is what it means on the Talmud. If you learn for 5 years and you don't see a blessing, you won't. He'll explain. He'll go back and explain it. However, everyone who does put their focus on the study of Kabbalah should spend a small portion of the day studying halakha. That means Jewish law. You have to know what to do. And practicing and answering practical questions. You have to know that. And this ends our quote, and that's the end of the quote from Rav Chaim Vital. So we see two sides of Chaim Vital. One is, your belly has to be full of Talmud and Mishnah, right? And you shouldn't study in Talmud. You shouldn't study Kabbalah until your belly is full of Talmud and Mishnah, of Nigle, Torah's Nigle, the revealed parts of the Torah. And then on the other side of the coin, he says, but if you tried and you weren't successful, so then you should leave it off altogether, like what the Torah says. After 5 years, you weren't successful at it, go to the study of Kabbalah, but make sure you learn a little halacha. Okay? So here he goes, paragraph 20. The words of Rav Chaim Vital here are seemingly very surprising. He says that a student who has not yet succeeded in learning the revealed Torah, such as the Talmud, should go and study Kabbalah. So this is in contradiction to what he said earlier, the first part. What did he say, the first part? That the wisdom of Kabbalah without revealed Torah is like a soul without a body. Because it has no relation to the physical world of activity. Right? So in other words, he first started off saying, don't be a soul without a body. You can't just be a soul without a body. You need a body. But yet here he seemed to say at the end, study Kabbalah. Right? So the proof that Rav Chaim Vital brings from the Talmud about a student who has not seen a transformation, he brings a great language here, who has not seen a transformation in himself. So that's what it means by a sign of a blessing. What does it mean, a sign of a blessing? If you've learned Torah for 5 years and you've not seen a sign of a blessing, so he translates sign of blessing as a transformation in yourself. Right? So the proof that Rav Chaim Vital brings from the Talmud about a student who has not seen a transformation in himself after 5 years of study is even more surprising. Surely, the sages did not intend that a person should give up studying Talmud altogether. What they intended, really, was to caution him to re-examine his ways and possibly consider studying under another teacher. Maybe go to another Rebbe. Or maybe change your tractate. You've been learning Gemara Baba Kama, right, for 5 years, and maybe you should start with Baba Metzia, okay, which is another tractate, right? They certainly did not mean that he should give up these studies completely. So what does it mean? That's one difficulty. The other difficulty is, there is another difficulty in Rav Chaim Vital's understanding of the passage that he quotes from the Talmud. This passage seems to suggest that a person needs a degree of preparation and special talent in order to attain the wisdom of the Torah. But surely the sages have said, the Holy One, blessed be He, said to Israel, by your life, all this wisdom and all this Torah is easy, right? Anyone who fears to be separate from me and practices the words of Torah will find all the wisdom and all the Torah in his heart. This is an astounding rule, okay? Go back over this again, okay? Some people see they need a special talent. I wasn't given a great mind to go ahead and absorb all this knowledge and details, Rabbi, right? Forget it, right? Or it needs so much preparation. No. This is amazing. Again, we have to look at this line. The Holy One, blessed be He, says to Israel, to every single Yid, by your life, b'chayecha, all the wisdom and all this Torah is easy. That's a very, you know what, that's my big word, right? Easy. That's the name of the angel, right? That we all have to, mamish, really totally integrate and know that and use it. Because if you say hard, you create a reality of hard. If you say impossible, you create a reality of impossible. It's easy. Anyone who fears to be separate from me, it's an amazing words. Anyone who fears to be separate from me, and that's really what yira is, okay? Yira and awe, and what we're always trying to attain, and it's a different kind of explanation of what awe is, okay? Awe of God, we call it awe of God, or reverence, really, is one is so much in love with God. He feels so connected all the time to God that he fears to be separate. So he's very vigilant in terms of his awareness that he doesn't want to do anything that might separate him from God. That's the real expression of what we call fear of God. That is loosely translated all the time, right? What does God want from you? Just a little fear. That means, what does he want from you? He wants such connectedness with you that you're very mindful of doing anything that would possibly detract or make a separation in that connectedness. Okay? Anyone who fears to be separate from me and practices the words of Torah will find all the wisdom and all the Torah in his heart. It is there, as we know from a different place. Okay? That before a person is born, an angel comes and teaches this person the entire Torah. Every single thing. And then, of course, when he's born, he gets a slap on the face, right? And he forgets his entire learning. And they ask, why? What's the point of that? If you're teaching him the whole Torah, why slap him on the face? It makes him forget it. And then the answer is that really when he's teaching you the Torah, when the angel is teaching you the Torah in the stomach of your mother before you were born, he's using like a hammer and chisel, and he's marking it, and he's engraving it in like stone. And then when you're born and he slaps you and you forget it, he's just covering it with dust. So the message is there. It's within our hearts. The entire Torah is there. We know really what's right and wrong, what to do. It's so there, right? And you know that deep within. And we've connected to it many times in our lives, right? But the idea here is we go through our lives and all we're trying to do is just get rid of the dust to see the message that's already there, okay? So he says it's easy, right? It's all, you just need this kind of attitude. Two things. Fear to be separate from God and practice the words of Torah will find all the wisdom and all the Torah in his heart. So, He goes on. In fact, we do not require any prior excellence. You don't need to be this big, huge, born, photographic memory wise guy. Just by virtue of being afraid to be separated from God, and by carrying out the mitzvot, well, that needs practice. I'm telling you, to have that idea, and to really integrate the idea that we're so connected every single moment. And then you have to kind of develop this idea, this attitude of the wanting to be mindful, not to do anything that would possibly separate us from God. That's a whole new mindset. It's a fantastic mindset. It's which we should be developing our entire lives. But in any case, just let's assume that we got it, okay? Separate from God, and by carrying out the mitzvah, we can come to merit all the wisdom in the Torah. It's already there. However, going on, if we pay close attention to the words of Rav Chaim Vital, they become as clear as a blue sky. For he wrote that if one is not succeeding in his studies of revealed Torah, okay, so you practice Talmud, right? Right? You learn Torah, you've learned Talmud, you're in it totally. Gewalt, right? If you're not succeeding, and what does that mean, succeeding, right? We'll talk about that. So if one is not succeeding in his studies of revealed Torah, he should instead turn his hand to the study of Kabbalah. By the term not succeeding, what does he mean by that? Not succeeding. Rav Chaim Vital does not intend intellectual understanding or expertise. In other words, you're not a doctor in Baba Kama, in the laws of damages, right? No, that's not what he means. But rather he means that which we discussed above in the explanation of the phrase, I created the evil inclination, I created the Torah as its medicine. That is to say that although the person is studying and laboring in the revealed Torah, nevertheless he finds that his evil urge is still active within him in all its force and has not softened at all. He still has doubts. He still doesn't feel the connection. He doesn't feel a greater connection, right? He finds that he still has sinful thoughts. He has doubts. He's still operating under the same patterns of perceptions and attitudes that he was. He's still the same shmendrik that he was when he started, right? He's not on a higher level of Emunah, on a higher level of belief, a higher level of connection, right? Just as Rashi described above in his explanation of I created the evil inclination, I created the Torah as its medicine. So then, if a person studied Torah, he studied Talmud, Mishnah, and everything, and he's still the same shmendrik he was 5 years ago. That's after 5 years. Imagine people who have 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So Rav Chaim Vital advises a person in such a situation to leave his study of revealed Torah, astounding, and turn to the study of Kabbalah. Because it is easier, and I underline this, it is easier through the practice and effort of the study of Kabbalah to draw to oneself the illumination which is inherent in the Torah than it is through labor in revealed Torah. Okay? In other words, when you're applying yourself in the Kabbalah and you're studying the Kabbalah in the inner parts of the Torah, so then it is much easier to draw the illumination, the special light that is in the Torah that can transform a person, brings you to a higher level of consciousness than through the revealed Torah. I'm not saying that it can't be done through the revealed part of the Torah. It can't. I've seen a person did it. I was talking with this rabbi. He only studies revealed Torah. He only studies Nigla. And I'm talking to him. I have a conversation. He brought this unbelievable rule, and I'm like, where did you get that from? That's like, and I knew I studied it from another place, right? And whoa. Okay, it can, but it doesn't work with everybody. Yeah, you know. So the reason is very simple, he goes on. It's saying what he's saying is amazing, right? And it happened with me. 8 years, I was plugging away in Talmud because, this is, and I'm happy about it. And I love the fact that I had this classical education in the world of the Misnagdim, okay? The Misnagdim are those who are against the Hasidim, the Litvish, And I'm very delighted, and and it's the most important thing, and it is the lifeblood. But then I had some kind of like, come on. I wasn't feeling any elevation. Okay, everybody was going to keep telling you, you're just learning how to learn. 5 more years, 5 more years, 5 more years, right? And I was going to feel, I wasn't feeling it. So I had to finally, I hooked up with this teacher of Kabbalah, had to sneak out of my study house, right, of the Beit Midrash at night, and went and learned in Kol Yehuda in the old city of Jerusalem. And that's when I got this book, and they introduced me to this book, and my eyes became opened. And this is the exact text that I was learning. And I was going, okay, wow, I feel at home here, okay? And the reason is very simple as he goes on. The reason of the revealed Torah, no, the reason is very simple. The wisdom of the revealed Torah, the Talmud. By the way, really we know that really the deepest secrets are in, actually, the Talmud. But they had to cloak it in such a way. They couldn't say it outright. And they're so deep that we're not going to see them till the time of Mashiach. Really. Okay? And the wisdom of the revealed, the Talmud, is clothed in external physical garments. Okay? When do we say the Shema? Okay? Right? When do we say the Shema? When the Kohanim, when the priests go in to eat their truma. Okay? What's the priest? What's truma? Okay? But in any case, or my favorite, right? It deals with issues such as stealing, robbery, damages, and the like, right? I have an ox, you have an ox. My ox gores your ox, right? It's a first time offense. How much does he pay? He pays half damage. My ox was worth $500. Your ox was worth $50. How does this working out? Comes out of what? Lots of whole masechta on ox goring ox, okay? You can get very much involved in a lot of details. Extremely unbelievable, right? For this reason, when you're involved in that, if you ever sit down in a study house and get involved, and it's gewaltig, it's an amazing, experience. For this reason, it is but, you have to know, for this reason, because it's external aspects, you're dealing with one ox goring another ox, it is very difficult for anyone to keep his or her heart pure and focused on God. Okay? In order to draw to himself or herself the light of Torah whilst they are learning this material. In other words, the material, the nature of the material of Talmud, a lot of times is so involved in physical things, it's hard to connect them to God because you get so lost. Sometimes, I know a lot of times, you're getting so lost in the difficulties and the answers to the difficulties and the debate and trying to understand the words that you lose focus on God. I remember Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, he was just saying recently, right, that he was asking some of his students who have kids, all the kids are in yeshiva, right? The kids are in yeshiva, and he was asking them that how many times he wanted them to ask their children, their kids who were studying in yeshiva day and night. How many times do they actually talk about Hashem? How many times do they actually mention God? How many times, I think only one of them, I don't know how many students there were, quite a few. Only one of them came back and said, yeah, my son has entertained the idea of God maybe once in a month. Okay, so in any case, it's not, you get so involved, so you lose track of, what are we doing here? Okay, so the idea here is, of course, if you study the Talmud, you get lost in all of those things. Okay, right? So therefore, the light of the Torah, they don't focus on the light of the Torah being elevating the person. This is even more so for one who finds the study itself difficult, right? If you study Talmud, great, and you love it and good, but sometimes it gets real difficult, right? Certain sugyas, certain topics, and are very, very difficult, very, very confusing. And I know in yeshivas I could talk a lot about it. I was in, there are different styles. Sometimes you go into a class in certain institutions, and the guy who's giving you the class, he so razzle-dazzles you with his logical weaving and bobbing and spinning, right? That you're lost, and you're lost in the trail dust, and he's like at the end of the shiur, oh, chalio, right? And you're left in the dust, and you're like maybe trying to pick up a piece or two of something of what was said. It could be very difficult, right? How? Okay, but It's good to put effort, really, and you have to, as much as you can. How is he? Okay, so if you're studying this material and it's even difficult for you, how is he or she meant to remember God during his or her study when the subject matter pertains to the physical world, one ox goring another ox? How can he or she possibly keep his or her intention directed towards God when dealing with material matters? That's simple. It's quite easy to understand. Therefore, Rav Chaim Vital counsels the student to occupy himself or herself with the wisdom of the Kabbalah, because this wisdom is entirely clothed in names of God. Now, you're always dealing with God. You're always dealing with the neshama. You're always dealing with the connection of the neshama. You're always dealing with spiritual matters in the spiritual realm. You're always dealing with the nitzutzot, the holy sparks that are within everything, and that you're elevating the holy sparks, and where you're elevating to, and how are you doing it, and how is my mind go ahead and so connected to God that how am I, and how am I doing mitzvahs in terms of elevating all of humanity when I'm doing even such a small little thing in my corner of the universe has an unbelievable effect in the entire realms. And you're learning about that all day, about how powerful we are and how meaningful we are and how God is totally involved in our lives. And that's what Emunah is about, okay? Thus, naturally, the student will be able to direct his or her mind and heart towards God during study, without effort, because you're talking about God. Even though the subject matter is extremely difficult, and it is, sometimes it gets into such details, unbelievable details. Nevertheless, since this wisdom and God are one, it becomes a simple matter. So it's like Torah has an external aspect, the revealed, and then internal. So you take off the layers, and then you have the inner parts, right, of it. See, sometimes we need the juice. Give us the juice. So now, going on, I don't know if you have this in your photocopies, but now we see that the quotation of Rav Chaim Vital brings from the Talmud is entirely appropriate. It says like this: if a pupil has not seen any transformation in himself after 5 years of learning, he or she will not see in the future. The reason as to why the student did not see a good sign in his or her learning is only because the student's lack of intention, and is not due to a lack of talent. It has to do with your intention. Okay, talent is not an issue here. The inner wisdom of Torah does not require talent, but as we have said in the above quotation from the sages, the Holy One, blessed be, said to Israel, by your life all the wisdom, all of the Torah is easy. Anyone who fears being separate from me and practices words of Torah will find all the wisdom and all the Torah in his heart. However, one has to give the process time during which one can accustom oneself to the light within the Torah and the mitzvot. An interesting idea. Process. Okay? Process is a great word. We're all in a process. God is making us right now. He's forming us right now, since we're in our houses, locked in our houses, so to speak. He's creating an unbelievable vessel. We're all in the process. And everybody in this general thing that God is doing, he's working on each and every one of us to be the exact vessel that we need to be and get the exact lesson that we need to get. God does not want to withhold that from us. The question is, how much time? Okay, I'm learning Torah. I'm in a process. How much time? One might think that the process could take all of 70 years of one's life. Therefore, the Talmud here comes to warn us not to wait any longer than 5 years. If you've applied yourself to Talmud Mishnah for 5 years, then you got to change. Right? With Rabbi Yossi of the Talmud saying that just 3 years is certainly sufficient to merit the wisdom of the Torah, Rabbi Yossi says a different, right? There's two ideas. There's 5 year and then there's a 3 year. If the person did not see a sign of transformation in themselves within that period of time, then he or she should not delude him or herself. Stop your delusion and your vain hopes. Rather, he or she should know that they are unlikely to achieve a transformation through this report. Your approach needs a shift. Okay? Therefore, without wasting any more time, the student should try another tactic through which he or she may come to merit the practice of Torah for its own sake, to be that transformed being, and to merit the wisdom of the Torah. The Talmud itself does not explain what this other way might be. It doesn't say. It just says 5 years, done. That's all it says. But it does warn the person not to simply sit and wait in their presence. Don't keep doing what you're doing. No, just keep going, keep going. Another Masech, another tractate. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. No. 5 years, if you're not transformed, you ain't going to see it in the way that you've been doing it so far. You need a change. So Rav Chaim Vital tells us that the best and surest tactic is for the person to become involved in the wisdom of Kabbalah and to leave off studying Talmud completely, as he has already tried. You've already tried Talmud, and it didn't work for you, to transform you. Okay? But this, of course, nowadays no one's going to tell you to leave off Talmud. He says it. But no one's going to tell you to leave off altogether, okay? Maybe come back to it. Or like what Rav 1 Kabbalah says, with the time that you put into studying Kabbalah, you should put equal time into Nigla. And for sure, the person says you still have to learn halacha every day because you have to know what to do. Like I always heard from, I think it was Rabbi Riskin, right, who says if you're stranded on a deserted island, you can only take 2 books. One is a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You have to know what to do, okay? The student should put all his energies into the study of Kabbalah. This is what he's saying. And he or she will certainly succeed in that for the reason that we have explained above, because we're supposed to get the light that is within the Torah that is going to elevate us, and we become a transformed being. Our consciousness become high on an elevated state, and then we become beacons of Emunah, and we teach Emunah. What are we here for? What are we in exile for? What are we supposed to be in the world? We're supposed to teach Emunah. That's the whole thing. The Gentiles are supposed to see us and going, wow, these guys are so connected. We want to be connected too. How do we be connected, right? It's all about connection. Are you connected to the unlimited source or not connected to the unlimited source? Do you feel you're connected to the unlimited source or not connected to the unlimited source? So the idea here is after you study Talmud, the light of the Talmud should get you to the elevated state where you feel all the time you're connected to the unlimited source. If you've been studying for 5 years and you didn't see it, you got to change your direction. His advice, study Kabbalah because it has the inner light of the Torah. It's the real juice. Okay? I know a lot. I'm just reading the words here. Okay? Let's go on just a little bit more. It is important to point out that Rav Chaim Vital is not suggesting that a person should renounce the study of the Revealed Torah, right? In as much as it pertains to the practical halacha. You need it. As it is said, an ignorant person cannot be a pious person, right? A bor cannot, an Amma Aretz cannot be a chassid, right? Cannot be a pious person. We all want to be pious to the degree that we can. We all are. We have that within us. It's there. Ki chassid ani, King David says. There's a nakuda within us. Every single person has that is absolutely 100% pure. But you can't say that because you can't be an ignoramus. And an inadvertent error may cause a person to make a deliberate error. Right? Even an accidental error. And even an inadvertent error may nevertheless incur a loss of much benefit. In other words, you can't be an ignoramus. You can't leave it off altogether. God forbid. Everyone is therefore required to review practical halacha so that he or she will not make any mistakes in practice. So that we can see that Rav Chaim Vital, in his remarks above, is not talking about the study of practical halacha. He is referring rather to the systematic study of Talmud for its inner wisdom. A person must be sure that he or she can deal with practical issues in halacha, as Rav Chaim Vital himself makes it clear. The aspect of studying that he is suggesting that we can give up understanding these circumstances, right? Under these circumstances is the realm of theory. that does not come into practice. In other words, a lot of people study Talmud just to get the theory of it, but they never really learn it to the place where there comes a practical application. But what he's saying here is, right, is you learn Talmud for the sake of practical application. What is the law? You have to come out always with what's the law. I see this opinion, that opinion, what's the law? Under these circumstances, it is permissible for a person to learn halacha from compendia of laws. Okay, so in the circumstances where the Talmud gets you too confused and you can't grasp it, so it says here, go straight to the compendia of law. That means the Shulchan Aruch or the Rambam, who wrote down the laws, right, the oral law, right? And you don't have to necessarily go to the sources if it's going to confuse you and you're not going to come to the bottom line law. One has to be very careful with this, however, as you cannot compare someone who has a profound knowledge of the source material of halacha to someone who knows it only from the summaries. Okay, so that's important to know. If you need to know the halacha, you got to go to a posek. You got to go to somebody who can really decide it, because he's weighed out from the Talmud, because that's where everything comes from, is from the Talmud. It was in order to be sure not to mislead here that Rav Chaim Vital makes the point right at the beginning of his words. That's why he started off that the soul requires the contact with the body which occurs in the practical work of the mitzvot. In other words, you can't just be just a Mr. Kabbalah man, right, in the clouds, and you're no earthly good. You need to know practically what to do. Okay? So you need to study the laws, but don't think just because you studied the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, you got it down. There's lots of things that goes into deciding laws that we're involved with every single day, such as Passover. It's unbelievable laws now that people are trying to nobody can tovel their dishes. Nobody can bring their dishes to a mikveh. If you buy a new dish that's a metal or glass, you have to put it in a mikveh, a special body of water, to purify it, right? So you can't do that because all the mikvahs are closed. What do? Right? So there's laws that you have to do. You got to go to the poskim. You got to go to the rabbis. You can learn the laws, and you should learn the laws. But the idea here is what we've learned today is an amazing thing. The whole light of the Torah is supposed to get us to a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of Emunah. If a person studies Talmud, only the revealed parts of the Torah, and he should study it, as Rav Chaim Vital starts off with, you have to fill your belly with Talmud and Mishnah. But if you studied that for a number of years, 5 years, okay, and 3 for Rabbi Yossi, and you didn't come to a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of connection, a higher level of Emunah, you're still the same doubtful, fraidy cat that you were when you started off. So then you got to change directions, and you have to start to look at the hidden parts, the hidden parts, the Kabbalah of the Torah. Because the Kabbalah of the Torah, he says the juice that is within it is going to be the light that is within the Torah that is going to elevate us. And he says quite simply, the reason why it elevates us is because we're constantly involved in God, right? As opposed to the external parts of the Torah, which deals with all of the laws of, whatever it is kashrut or an ox goring an ox. You get lost in that, and then you start losing the focus of what's the Torah supposed to be doing to me? How am I supposed to be becoming elevated to God? God, where are you? The idea here is, Chevre, we're going to end right now with the second. We're all really so connected. You got to feel that connection all the time. And the answer is always within us. Is there a place where the wisdom of God ends and we begin? All of the wisdom of the Torah is within us. You just got to move the dust away. It's all there. We're already connected. We're all the work that we're trying to do is just to uncover the idea that we've always been connected, right? There's no place where the completeness of God ends and we begin, right? We have to become that Tamimus style person where we're so connected, and there's no place where the wisdom, the knowledge of God ends and we begin. So we should end off here with this idea, and thank God we've got Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ashlag to give us the way how to strengthen our Emunah and stay strong in your week. God willing, I'll be giving a little vortlach over Facebook over the coming on terms of the Yud Gimel Midot and how to practice them. You guys have a great week.